What is up, guys? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and in this video I want to revisit one of the weirdest vehicles in the game and or one of the rarest. The Proto A500 is going to be the only helicopter in the Crew 2. What I do find kind of interesting about this is due to the fact that I really haven't used it. Do keep in mind, guys, you cannot change the settings of this vehicle and or upgrade this thing at all. Apparently it's going to do around 260 miles per hour, even though I did notice around the cruising speed with this thing's probably like 205 or so. And even cruising around 205 miles per hour, you can still easily find those live reward crates, which by the way, guys, this helicopter is going to be great for. But do keep in mind though, if you do have a live reward sniffer for like a plane, you're most likely just going to want to use that because you can't do anything to this helicopter, which I always found this kind of weird that this was actually in the game. It's also once again going to be the only helicopter in the Crew 2, and I still wonder to this day if Motorfest is going to have this helicopter and or like one of the trick ones and or more for that matter. But to be honest, guys, I would probably say a lot of players most likely don't want them to add trick helicopters. I also really don't see the point of having these in the game like that either, because for one, a lot of players are most likely not even going to use them, and I feel like a lot of people are still not the biggest fans of the airplanes in general. And of course, with all the summits actually having airplane events and or skills, I feel like the last thing somebody's going to want to see is a helicopter skill in a summit. My goodness, that would honestly be pretty interesting. But and of course, flying the heli around, you're probably going to expect this thing to not handle that great, which for one, guys, are going to be pretty right on. But this thing is honestly pretty hilarious. You can do backflips and do some crazy turns with it and basically fly around. For some odd reason, every time I fly this heli around, it kind of brings me back to MX Unleashed. That is probably one of my favorite games to this day. My goodness, it was so good. And I do remember flying around the helicopter in that game as well. And one thing I have to admit, guys, I would probably go as far as saying the physics on this heli in the Crew 2 is probably going to be worse than GTA Online, which probably is kind of sad to say, but in a lot of ways it's also kind of hilarious. But this thing is pretty fun to use. It's probably going to be one of those vehicles, though, that you basically never see anywhere. And I would say a lot of players most likely do have this thing unlocked, which, if you guys were wondering, unlocking this thing is also pretty easy. All you have to do is get the Alford family to 50%, and then once you guys beat Tucker, you will basically get this thing immediately. So it is going to be insanely easy to unlock this helicopter if you guys actually do want it. One thing I also find kind of funny about this is looking at the back end of it. For some odd reason, it reminds me of like an Angry Bird looking at you every time you fly it, which is kind of odd to say the least. But overall, guys, flying around in this heli is definitely going to be a pretty odd experience. For one, you can do this with it and basically spin around kind of weird with it in general. Like, you're basically in like a crazy dogfight in Battlefield or something like that. So it is by far going to be a very odd vehicle to use in the Crew 2. And I really do wonder if they're actually going to move over this heli into Motorfest. I did hear something about that basically every vehicle in the Crew 2, including the Summit cars, are all going to be in Motorfest basically right off the bat, plus a lot of new ones. So I really can't wait to see more information on that game. But I would probably say a helicopter in Motorfest is probably not going to be the most sought after thing, mainly because a lot of players are most likely going to unlock this one in the Crew 2, and then basically forget this helicopter actually exists, because I was also one of those people. I honestly totally forgot this thing was actually in the game, but when I jump back into it, I can definitely see why a lot of players are not going to fly this thing around. For one, guys, the physics and or the handling is probably not going to be the best thing in the game. I would even say the planes are a lot better, but then again, this game is not honestly focused on helicopters, so I can't really get all that mad with that in general because it's not really focused on this. But overall, I do think this helicopter is pretty fun. I also do think a lot of players are most likely never going to use it. For one, if you guys did try to follow your friends with this, you're probably going to be the slowest thing out there, considering even all the planes can also beat this thing as well. So it's definitely going to be more of like a fun and or mess around vehicle. Unfortunately, you once again cannot change the settings and or add any power to it, which I do think seeing a level 300 helicopter doing 300 something miles an hour would probably be one of the scariest things ever. But again, guys, let me know what you think about this heli in the comments below. And do you guys think this thing is also going to be moved over to Motorfest? I really wonder if they're actually going to do that.